All right, shalom, shalom. First off, give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Ba'ashem, Rakar Dub honors to the apostles and elders of GMS. Salutes and honors to the elect, all the brothers across the four corners who are enduring in truth and sincerity, the women, the children, and the confusion of faith who follow. So, as you can see, this video is entitled um, either the history of money or the evolution of money. I'm not sure what I'm going to call it yet, but this video is inspired by the brother in Hawaii, Gabar Yahawada, who did a lesson earlier today, and he went into how China had the first fiat currency. Okay, so definitely want to put that out there. It kind of sparked something in my mind that made me want to go down the rabbit hole of, just the history of money and how it's evolved over the years. So, Lord willing, this is going to be an edifying video, and we're going to start at the very beginning. What in the Bible do we consider actual money? And it's simple. Okay, it's land, livestock, and gold and silver. Okay, so we are going to go into Genesis 13:1. All right, it says, and Abram went up out of Egypt, and his wife, and all that he had, and Lot with them into the south. And Abram was very rich with what? With cattle and silver and gold. And he went on his journey from the south even to Bethel, unto the place where his tent had been at the beginning between Bethel and Hai. So he's going to his land. All right, so we have the three pillars: the land, the cattle, and the gold and silver. Unto the place of the altar where he had made there at the first, where he had made there at the first. And there Abram called on the name of the Lord. And Lot also, which went with Abram, had flocks and herds and tents. And the land was not able to bear them, that they might dwell together, for their substance was great, so that they could not dwell together. Right, so you can imagine a vast land, and they had riches. Okay, you had Abram, he had what they said 300 servants and all kind of cattle, and then Lot had his servants and he had cattle. So they had all these riches, but there wasn't enough land between the two of them, so they separated. Okay, you go. He said, "You go your way, and I'll go my way. That way, we don't have these skirmishes between us. They were family. So let's go into these individually. Land. Why is land so valuable? What can you do with it? Well, you can plant crops. Okay, you can plant crops that you can then trade. That's another thing that was uh, very common back in those days, was the barter and the trade system. We'll get into that here shortly. So you can plant crops, which you can feed your family, and you can trade. You can chop the trees, and you can use that in carpentry work or different uses for wood. You can sell pieces of the land. Okay, you can raise livestock, which is cattle. So going into the cattle, all right, the cattle could feed your family. The cattle, or you can use the cattle to actually till the land. All right, you can use sheep to shear them, and you can make clothes, make blankets, make things of that nature. You can then sell clothes, sell blankets, things of that nature. You can sell your livestock. You can breed and sell different livestock to different people. So this is how you were able to gain riches. This is how you were able to then have people come and work on your land. Like it said that Abram had 300 servants, and I believe they were all trained with swords. They later had to go rescue Lot. But this is how you get that great substance. So now that as you're growing, now you need people to come and help you, and you bring people in, people that are trustworthy, that they can help you around the homestead, because you're self sufficient at that point. You have your excuse me, you have your livestock, you have your crops, you can make butter, milk, whatever, as long as you got a source of water, and that's all you really need. Okay, So these people are coming in, they're helping you to sustain your riches and to get more. And at the same time, you're paying them a good enough wage that in a certain amount of time, they can then leave and then be set up and they can be good for their family. So that's how wealth was amassed and wealth was passed down back in those days. And we're talking, according to scholars and Bible history, you don't know exactly how accurate it is, but this is about 1900 BC that we're talking about. So this is how things were done, and everything was done decently in order in these times. You really couldn't, the governing body couldn't regulate this. They couldn't come in and say, okay, well, you had 7 EU lambs, and you had 4 heifers, and 12 goats, and you need to pay taxes on this, that, and the third. Okay, nobody paid rent in these days. All right, you had your land, you paid for your land, you had your house, you built it on your land, and people gained wealth. It's not a system of debt like we have in these times where you go to work all day, and we'll get to that here later in the video in this video. But it was simpler times, it was easier times, it was much much better times in my opinion, which is why we need the kingdom. Um, Moving on to the gold and silver. Okay, why is gold and silver? Why has that always been the gold standard of money? Okay, so and y'all bear with me. I'm reading my notes, so if I look away, that's what I'm doing. It says the metal is abundant enough to create coins, but rare enough so that not everyone can produce them. Okay, gold doesn't corrode, providing a sustainable store of value, and humans are physically and emotionally drawn to it. Societies and economies have placed value on gold, thus perpetuating its worth, which that makes sense. Okay, it's not going to corrode. It's readily available, but not too available. So at that point, it's really supply and demand. And going on to what I was saying earlier, trades and barters were really heavy in these times. So you traded or you bartered based off your profession. Say I'm a cobbler. I make shoes. Now everyone in the town is gonna need some shoes. So the carpenter, I need a new table. I'm gonna go to the carpenter and say, hey, I know you need some shoes. Well, yeah, I need some shoes. Or he's gonna come to me and say, hey man, I need some new shoes. What can I do for you? Okay, well I need a table. You give me a table, I get you X amount of shoes. I get you some shoes, get your wife some shoes, get your kids some shoes, make me a nice table. All right. Say I need some metal work done. I need a sword or something. So the sword guy comes to me, hey man, I need some shoes. My wife needs some shoes. Okay, make me a sword. I got you some shoes. Say a guy owns an orchard. Hey, I need some shoes. And so on and so forth with all the different professions. So that's how a society was able to take care of each other because everyone had a job, everyone had a profession that they did, and it was a need within the community, and everyone felt that need. So it was a circular deal. And if you didn't, there was also gold then too. So if I needed some shoes, I can always pay with gold or silver. Or if I needed, a sword, I can always pay with silver or gold if you had it. Keeping in mind that gold and silver are reserved for really people with a lot of money. If you had a copper, in some societies, just depending on what time you were in and what was quote legal tender, I guess you would say, in those days. But let's get a scripture real quick. Going in on the bartering. This is Ezra chapter 3, verse 7 says, they gave money also unto the masons and to the carpenters, and meat and drink and oil unto them of Zidon, and to them of Tyre, to bring cedar trees from Lebanon to the sea of Joppa, according to the grant that they had of Cyrus the king of Persia. So this is when we were building the temple, and we had to pay them to bring the cedar woods from Lebanon, where the best wood is from, right? So what they pay them? They pay them in money, they pay them in meat, they pay them in drink, and they pay them in oil. All things of substance, all things that they can use tangibly to feed their families and do whatever they had to do in their daily lives. All right. Also, we were a commodity. We were traded. We were bartered. Okay. Going to uh, Joel 3:3, it says, I'll start at 2. It says, I will also gather all nations, will bring them down into the valley of Jehoshaphat. It says, and will plead with them there for my people, for my heritage, Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my lands. Right. So we were scattered amongst the four winds. Us Negroes, Latinos, and Native Americans, the true children of Israel, were scattered amongst the four corners of the earth. Okay, it says, and they cast lots for my people, and have given a boy for an harlot, and sold a girl for wine, that they might drink. Right, so we were commodities. We were the first commodity on the on Wall Street. Okay, we were traded. They gave money for us. They probably gave horses, land, whatever they had to do to get us. All right, so we were definitely a commodity. Also, um, the Africans that sold us, because it was a three-way deal. The so-called Jews, the small hats, the 48ers, they paid for the boats. The Arabs built the boats, and the Hamites, they caught us, kidnapped us, and they pretty much sold us into slavery. What was that exchange? They didn't get paper money or coin money. They got guns, gunpowder, they got mirrors, and liquor for people. That's bartering. Our bartering's always been around. It's always going to be around. Okay. Um, so this is kind of broken off into different eras. So we're going to move on to the next era, which is coins. All right. The first coins. The first coins appeared around 600 BC, jingling around the pockets of the Lydians, okay, which is present day Turkey. It says a kingdom tied into ancient Greece and located in modern day Turkey. They featured the stylized head of a lion and were made of electrium, an alloy of gold and silver. So it's basically the first coins were made of gold and silver for all the reasons that we mentioned previous. All right, it says the first human who dared to have his individual features presented on coins was Tissaphernes, all right, circa 445 to 395 BC, a Persian nobleman and a satrap of Lydia. It says other Persian sovereigns soon followed his example, but in the Western world, it would take some time until the portraits appeared on different coins. So this is where you get that, that boy's got his own money. He got his own money. Okay, where you have the presidents and you have Caesars, so on and so forth. Putting their visits on the currency to basically say, "Hey, I'm ruling this. This is what I'm uh, allowing the people to use in these times in my domain." You would say. Okay, so going forward a little bit, going to China in about 200 BC. All right, people carried around small tokens that looked like the item that they wanted to trade. So I'll give you an example. Say I grow corn. So I would have a little coin that I would probably a pocket full of them that I would go around and say, hey, instead of me carrying a bunch of corn on my back, or something, having something bulky, you had just the coins in your hands, and I will go to say somebody that had rice and say, hey, let me get 2 barrels of rice. I give you 3 ears of corn, or three barrels of corn, or whatnot, and whatever the deal was. So I would give you yours, you give me mine. At the end of the day, I see, okay, I got 3 things of rice coming. I got four things of, I got two swords or whatever it is that you need to get, a couple apples or whatever you needed to get, some clothes. All right, and sometime later you would get together and exchange all your goods. Okay, here's your corn, here's your corn, here's your corn, here's your corn, and it worked. Eventually, it came to a system where all the coins were the same, but it's pretty nifty system. All right, so since we're speaking of coins, we are going to get Matthew 17 and 24. Yeah, I'll start at 24. It says, and when they were come to Capernaum, they that received tribute money came to Peter and said, doeth not your master pay tribute? He saith, yes. And when he was coming to the house, Yahushua prevented him, saying, what thinkest thou, Simon? Of whom do the kings of the earth take custom or tribute? Of their own children or of strangers? Peter said unto him, of strangers. Yahushua saith unto him, then are the children free? Notwithstanding, lest we should offend them, go thou to the sea and cast a hook and take up a fish, and take up the fish that first cometh up. And when thou hast opened up his mouth, thou shalt find a piece of money that take and give unto them for me and for thee. So, kind of went into this a little bit. When you go into one of the other translations in the NIV, it says a four drachma coin. Now I looked up what a 4 drachma coin is. So a 4 drachma coin or a shekel would be exactly enough to pay the temple tax, which is a 2 drachma coin. Okay, so a 4 would pay for 2 people, paying for Peter and Yahushua. So that's usually how it worked. Okay, so that's what he said for me and for thee. Okay, salt. Roman soldiers were paid in salt. So I want to get this. Here we go. So it says in Britain. Here we go. Roman soldiers were partly paid in salt. It is said to be from this where we get the word soldier, which is soldaire, meaning to give salt. It's also where you get the word salary. I kind of jumped the gun. It says from the same source we get the word salary, salarium. So we get salt, or we get soldier and salary from the word salt. Okay, meaning to give salt, or to basically, that's their payment. They were paid in salt. It says salt was scarce and an expensive commodity, and its value was legendary. And this is a really important part. It says to sit above or below the salt identified precedence in the seating arrangement at feasts according to one's rank. To not be worthy of one's salt was a great insult. Okay, it says the Bible compliments some men as being the salt of the earth, which is us, the Israelites. Right, we are the salt of the earth. We have a higher value than everyone else. All right, that's very. It kind of resonated with me. That where you sat in line or where you sat at the table was, had intrinsic value, because if you were too far, you didn't get no salt. Right? This is like the good China. This is like the good wine, the good yayan. And if you too far down there, you're not even worth it. It was expensive. So let's get Matthews 5 and 13. It says, "Ye are the salt of the earth." Okay, He's not just saying that. He's saying that we have flavor. Of course, we know that we have flavor, but it goes so much deeper than just having flavor. Intrinsic value. Our value is astronomical compared to the other nations. We are Yasha'Allah. We are the Prince of the Power. All right, we have the promises and the giving of the law and the glory, and so on and so forth. It says, but if the salt have lost its savor, wherewith shall it be salted? Right. So we are so valuable. But if our people don't hold themselves to that standard, then what's the point of being that valuable? It says it is thenceforth good for nothing, but to be cast out and to be trodden down under the foot of men. So that's why 2/3 of our people gotta go, because they're not holding that value that they should be, right? That standard, you know. That's what I want. The salt trade. There was a gold and salt trade. Okay, because gold has its value, and salt has its value. Before I do that, I believe I skipped something. Um, where was that? Oh man, bear with me. It's about the weight. Bear with me. Here we go. Okay, so about gold. In ancient times, people were minting standardized gold platelets and gold coins, which had a nominal value based on their gold weight. So that's how you valued the gold. It wasn't just a coin. I mean, when you got advanced around this time, we started off at 1900, and now we're around the time of Yahushai, around 30 BC to maybe 50 AD. We're in that range of time now. So by then, yeah, they probably had standardized gold coins. The weight, the measurement was this, especially in the Roman kingdom, or the Roman Empire, which is one reason why they went down, because they drove the metal. They kept mixing it and making it less and less and less of the precious metals and more of the base metals. So going back before then, everything was weighed. So you would have your scale, and you put your three apples on there or whatnot on this side, and then you say, well, it needs to weigh X amount. Okay, you put your gold on there, and that's how you weighed it. All right. It was said that let me see if I had it on here. One of the emperors. Bear with me. Uh, One of the emperors in the Roman kingdom. I can't find the actual words right now, but basically, uh, a pound of gold was able to be cut into 40 to 42 coins. So that's how it was regulated. Okay, thought that was definitely something. I'm glad I remembered that. Um, but going back to where we were with the gold and salt trade, you had two things that were of value: salt being very scarce and valuable, and then the gold being, you know, scarce and valuable. Okay, so gold from Mali and other Western African states was traded north to the Mediterranean in exchange for luxury goods and ultimately salt from the desert. So you would have people in the west coast of Africa, where you have the Ivory Coast, you have tons of mineral resources, gold just laying in the river. Like it's the Rio Grande, or I said the Rio Grande. I'm sorry, basically as if it's the gold rush of California, and it's just gold laying everywhere. But it was very mineral rich region, so they were able to then go to where they knew the market was for it, which is the Mediterranean. You got Italy, you got Greece, you got all these little islands, you got Egypt, Israel, Turkey, all these Rome, all these places that have value and have things that they can do what barter in exchange for. So that's how the world ran. Okay, exchanging. You have what's it called the Silk Road going all the way to China, where they were bartering and exchanging. Okay, so now we are getting to paper money. So it said that in China in around 700 AD, somewhere between 700 to 1000 AD, they had the idea. It was called flying money. Okay, because it was paper. So as you know, like paper, it starts flying in the wind. You know, it'll start flying. If you drop it, it'll start flying. So flying money. That's how they came up with it. But Marco Polo actually brought the idea back to Europe around 1300. So that's around the time that Europe first came in contact or came into the idea of having paper money. But at this point in time, most of the world was still using some form of coinage, whether it be solid gold. Most of the time, it was either solid gold or solid silver, because again, that's what held the value. All right. Um, it wasn't until right around the American Revolution that's when banks started actually issuing notes. IOU notes, basically notes that were backed by gold. All right, so you had a lot of merchants. Merchants, remember, everything was over on the old world. Now the new world then opened up. You have people going back and forth between, the 13 colonies and Europe. So if you want to bring something back, if you want to exchange goods or whatnot, you got to have a big bag of gold. So in order to, number one, be safer, and number two, not to have to carry all that um, the heavy metals back and forth, they went to the IOU notes. So it was just easier. You know, you have you got a pocket full of paper, opposed to you know Santa Claus bag full of gold, and then you can go to the bank and exchange your paper for your Santa Claus bag full of gold. It made sense. All right, the actual paper was backed by something. Until that is America goes off the gold standard. So let's pull this up real quick. All right, here we go. So this is from history.com. It says FDR takes United States off a gold standard. On June 5th, 1933, the United States went off the gold standard, a monetary system in which currency is backed by gold. Okay, this is the beginning of the end. When Congress enacted a joint resolution nullifying the right of creditors to demand payment in gold. The United States has been on a gold standard since 1879, except for an embargo on gold exports during World War One. But bank failures during the Great Depression of the 1930s frightened the public into hoarding gold, making the policy untenable. Soon after taking office in March of 33, President Roosevelt declared a nationwide bank moratorium in order to prevent a run on the banks by consumers lacking confidence in the economy. He also forbade the banks to pay out gold or to export it. According to the Keynesian economic theory, one of the best ways to fight off an economic downturn is to inflate the money supply and increase the amount of gold held by the Federal Reserve. Um, yeah, would in turn increased its power to inflate the money supply. Facing a similar pressure, Britain had dropped the gold standard in 1931, and Roosevelt had taken note. And really, it's all just a coup to bring in a system of debt. Okay, this plan for the New World Order. Remember, their birth was in what 1774. So at this time, you know, they're 160 years into their plan. All right, so you had America built up, but you had to find a way in order to capture the people. All right, so what did the Rothschild say? Give me the control of a country's money supply, and I care not about. I'm kind of butchering it. There we go. Give me control of a nation's money supply, and I care not who makes its laws, said Maya Amschel Bauer. It's like it. Maya Amschel Rothschild, which is Bauer, founder of the Rothschild banking dynasty. So, as long as you're controlling the money, you're controlling the people. Who cares about the laws? They said that the Constitution is just a piece of paper, so they really didn't care. So this is America going off the gold standard. So this is now the currency isn't backed by nothing. It's just a dollar bill. So what happens when you have a dollar bill or in a society backed by nothing, or currency backed by nothing, should I say? I'm gonna play this video. I've played this video before. It's just the most edifying video that I have or really know of at the moment. So that's why I'm gonna continue to play it. I'm not gonna play the whole thing. Maybe about 8-9 minutes of it. Bear with me. I know this is a long video, but it's a lot that we get into. It's a lot of history. So if you're still with me, the water, and let's keep it moving.
That money doesn't grow on trees, but the truth is that the modern banking system creates currency far faster than trees can grow. Most people don't have a clue how currency is created. Economists and bankers make it sound so complex that people think they can't understand it. But I'm going to strip our monetary system down to its essence so that you can see the scam behind the curtain and just how it affects you. Every modern society creates currency in pretty much the same way. But since the US dollar is the majority of the world's currency, I'm going to use the United States as our example. It all starts when some politician says, vote for me and I'll make sure the government provides you more free stuff than my opponent will. But there's no such thing as a free lunch. So to provide that supposedly free stuff, the politicians vote for the country to spend more than its income. This is called deficit spending. To pay for that deficit spending, the Treasury borrows currency by issuing a bond. So what's a bond? If you think about it, a bond is really nothing but a glorified IOU. It's a pretty piece of paper with numbers printed on it that says, loan me $1 trillion today, and I promise over a 10-year period I'm going to pay you back that $1 trillion plus interest. But what you need to understand is that Treasury bonds are our national debt. These glorified IOUs are to be paid back by you and I and our descendants through future taxation. Therefore, when the government issues a bond, it steals prosperity out of the future so that it can spend it today. The Treasury then holds a bond auction, and the world's largest banks show up and compete to buy part of our national debt and make a profit on it by earning interest. You'll notice that as we move through this process, the big banks are there, taking a cut every step of the way. This isn't by chance, as you'll see shortly. Then, through a shell game called open market operations, the banks get to sell some of those bonds to the Federal Reserve at a profit. To pay for the bonds, the Federal Reserve opens up its big old checkbook and writes bad, bogus, counterfeit checks that should bounce because they're drawn on an account that always has a zero balance. There isn't one penny in there. To quote from the Boston Federal Reserve, when you or I write a check, there must be sufficient funds in our account to cover that check. But when the Federal Reserve writes a check, There is no bank deposit on which that check is drawn. When the Federal Reserve writes a check, it is creating money. The Fed then hands those checks to the banks, and at this point, currency springs into existence. The banks then take that currency and buy more bonds at the next Treasury auction. But what is a check? A check is also an IOU. When you write a check, you're making a note that says, here's my IOU for cash. All you have to do is go to the bank and pick it up. Now, it's very, very important that you understand this process, because we're going to come back later and show you the devastating effect this has on you. The Treasury issues IOUs, bonds. The banks then buy those IOUs with currency. The Federal Reserve then writes IOUs, checks, and hands them to the banks in exchange for the Treasury's IOUs, the bonds. And currency is created. So what's really happening is the Federal Reserve and the Treasury are just swapping IOUs, using the banks as middlemen, and abracadabra, presto, currency magically springs into existence. This process repeats and repeats over and over again, enriching the banks and indebting the public by raising the national debt. The end result is that there's a buildup of bonds at the Federal Reserve and currency at the Treasury. This process is also where all paper currency comes from. The Federal Reserve and the government mistakenly call it base money because they didn't watch episode 1 of this series and they don't know the difference between money and currency. But I will correctly refer to it as base currency because it is not money. It is currency, and as we've learned, there is a big difference. Money has to be a store of value and maintain its purchasing power over long periods of time. We learned in episode 1 that earlier in our history, our paper currency was just a claim check. It was a representation for real money of intrinsic value, the gold and silver that was held on deposit at the Treasury. You could walk into any bank and slap your currency, like say a $20 bill, on the counter and redeem it for real money, a $20 gold piece. But now, this base currency that's piling up back here is really nothing but a receipt or a claim check on an IOU, that bond. So it's really nothing but a supply of numbers. The Treasury then deposits the newly created currency into the various branches of the government, and the politicians say, hey, thanks for that. And the government does some deficit spending on public works, social programs, and war. The government employees, contractors, and soldiers then deposit their pay in the banks. Now, this may come as a shock to you, but when you deposit your currency with the bank, you're not actually depositing it into an account to be safely held in trust for you. Instead, you're actually loaning the bank your currency, and within certain legal limits, they can do with it pretty much anything they please. This includes gambling in the stock market and loaning it out at a profit, of course. Now this is where the machine of currency creation really gets cranking, because this is where something called fractional reserve lending comes into play. Fractional reserve lending is exactly what it says. The banks are allowed to reserve only a fraction of your deposit and loan the rest out. Although reserve ratios may vary, I'm going to use a 10% reserve ratio as our example. If you deposit $100 in your account, the bank can legally take $90 of it and loan it out without telling you. The bank must hold $10 of your deposit in reserve just in case you want some of it. These reserves are called vault cash. But why does your bank account still say you have $100 if the bank has stolen $90 of it? Because the bank left IOUs it created called bank credit in its place. Now I know this sounds crazy, but here it is in black and white from the Fed. Commercial banks create checkbook money when they grant a loan simply by adding new deposit dollars in accounts on their books in exchange for a borrower's IOU. These are nothing but numbers that the banks type into their computers. And even though these bank credit IOU numbers are very different from base currency numbers, because they only exist in computers, they are still currency. So now there is $190 in existence. Now the reason people take out loans from the banks is to buy something. They're going to buy a house or a car or something like that. So the borrower takes the $90 that the bank loaned to him from your account, and he pays the seller of the item. But then the seller deposits that currency into his account, and his bank loans out 90% of that and leaves bank credit numbers in its place. So now there's $271 in existence. This process repeats and repeats until under a 10% reserve ratio, an initial deposit of just $100 can create up to $1,000 of bank credit, all backed by $100 of vault cash, just 10%. But as I said, reserve ratios vary wildly. On some deposits, it's 10%, on others, it's 3%, and on some forms of deposits, reserve requirements are zero. The result is that the expansion of the currency supply by the banks is far greater than even this example would lead you to believe. So once again, when currency is deposited in the banks get to lend it out, and then it gets redeposited and relent, redeposited and relent, redeposited and relent over and over again, creating bank credit all the way. This is where the vast majority of our currency supply comes from. In fact, 92 to 96% of all currency in existence is created not by the government, but here in the banking system. Now, massive amounts of currency spewing into society may at first sound like a fun idea. That is, until you remember one of the most important hidden secrets of money from episode 1, that the prices of everyday goods and services act as a sponge on an expanding currency supply. The more currency we have, the more prices rise. This is where inflation comes from. The true definition of inflation is an expansion of the currency supply. Rising prices are merely the symptom. So our entire currency supply is nothing but a couple of bucks whipped up in this hocus-pocus scam where the Treasury and the Federal Reserve swap glorified IOUs, and a bunch of numbers that the banks just type into their computers. That's it. That's our entire currency supply. It's nothing but a supply of numbers, some of them printed, most of them typed, and there is nothing else. But if you thought that was crazy, get ready to enter the twilight zone of modern economics. We work for some of that currency supply. True wealth is your time, but we trade away moments of our lives, hour by hour, day by day, and year by year, for numbers that somebody printed on pieces of paper or just typed into a computer. Now those numbers represent our blood, sweat, tears, labor, ideas, and talent. We are what gives the currency its value. But here comes the really cruel joke. We work hard so that we can save some of that currency, so that we can pay the tax collector in the United States, it's known as the IRS. They then turn it over to the Treasury so that the Treasury can pay the principal plus interest on that bond that the Federal Reserve bought with a check drawn on an account that has nothing in it. Now let's do a recap on this section because this is where the system begins to rob you and I on a massive scale. Much of our taxes are not used for schools.
Okay, so it's an excellent video. I can't play it all. Links in the description. So that is how we get to where we're at today. We're going to back it up a little bit, but you can see how we are rushing forward into debt. I believe we're $30 trillion in debt right now. And the economy is on the brink of inflation. So this is a Habakkuk chapter 2, verse 6. It says, "Shall not all these take up a parable against him, and a taunting proverb against him?" Him being the so-called white man Esau. It says, "Woe to him that increaseth that which is not his, how long? And to him that ladeth himself with thick clay." Now that thick clay is the Hebrew word abadia, which means heavy debts. Okay. In this country, like I said, 30 trillion in debt from creating money from nothing, from out of thin air. If you're creating money and you owe money, you'll never be able to level it out. If I need to borrow $20 to create $10, then I still owe $10. I'll never be ahead. Okay, so that's how this paper dollar works. Um, let's go to credit. All right, because credit has always been here. Credit is basically a front. You can imagine going all the way back to the time of Abraham that people did fronts. A front is basically where, okay, I'm going to give you 3 ears of, I'm going to give you three bushels of corn. Now, you have cattle. When your next cattle is born, you got to give me that cattle. That's a front. I'm going to front you this corn so that you can eat and feed your family. But when that cow was born, that next cow was born, you owe me a cow. Okay, that's how a front is made. That's credit, loaning on credit. So, where are we at with this? Slakia. No time I don't want to subscribe for 99 cents. Okay, so this is going all the way back. All right, it says from time.com, it says, and in 1946, John C. Biggins of Flatbush National Bank of Brooklyn, Brooklyn, New York, created a system called Charge It, a bank-issued card that let people in a 2 square block radius charge purchases to the bank. The area was limited by necessity. Merchants had to leave sales slips with the bank, but promised ease for locals who could use the card at multiple businesses. Then came the Diners Club card in the 1950s, providing proof of credit that could be honored at any participating store. So now you can go to a store and you can buy a pair of shoes and give them your card number and just guarantee that you're going to pay it. Just like how we do today. Okay. Let me see. Founded by Frank X. McNamara and Ralph Schneider, Diners Club was the first independent card company. They were soon joined by Alfred Bloomingdale, who had this similar idea, where you get the big store, the big, whether it's a store or a shopping outlet, Bloomingdale, I believe it's in New York, but it says, where many other early credit cards failed within a few years, Diners Club was successful, starting with 200 cardholders at 14 restaurants in New York. The cards ushered in an era of the credit card, says Mandel. In its first year, the club expanded to 42,000 cardholders and handled more than $500,000 in transactions at 330 establishments in a single month. 5 years in, they were at 300,000 members. So going back to the 40s and the 50s, that's when credit cards started to come into play. Now we know that money is now just ones and zeros on a computer screen. So these credit card companies, they work the same way banks do. Okay, they're basically lending out the money and then you're paying interest, and the money is basically ones and zeros on a computer. That's all I really need on this one. Not really too much to say. You know how credit cards work, especially living in a digital world that we live in now, where you have internet and goods and services. You don't have to be present in someone's shop or at a mall or at a mart or a marketplace in order to change my my corn for a sword or my gold for some rice or whatever it is. I can use my money from the comfort of my home and pay somebody in China to send me a sword in the mail. They'll get their money and I'll get my sword. All right, it's a worldwide global um, network now, which, going back to what I said earlier about the new world order, okay, they're not trying to just take over one entity or one land space like America or just Europe or just Africa or whatnot. They want to take over the world. So in order to do that, they have to be global. That's why everything is now global. You have the World Wide Web, right? So in order to do that, going back to what I said before, give me control of a nation's money supply and I care not who make the laws. They need to have control of the worldwide money supply in order to establish control, establish dominance. Remember, going back to what I said at the beginning of the video, that when you were just living off a gold standard, bartering with your uh, essential needs and goods, it's hard for a governing body to regulate all that. Okay, even in this society, when dealing with cash, it's hard to regulate everything. But now that everything is going digital, it leaves a marker, it leaves a print, so you can follow the drip if you understand what I'm saying, which is where we're going now, which is to the cryptocurrency, right? That's the next big thing. So, what is cryptocurrency? All right, let's scroll up a little bit. All right, a cryptocurrency, um, or crypto, is a digital currency like designed to work as a medium exchange. So a mediator, in between, a medium exchange through a computer network that is not relative on any central authority, such as a government or bank, to uphold or maintain it. So basically, it's a currency, it's a medium of exchange. I'll give you this for that, but it's not regulated by a government, it's not regulated by a bank. So it's more free, but it is, matter of fact, let me was the main purpose of cryptocurrency. The main purpose of cryptocurrency is to fix problems of traditional currencies by putting the power and the responsibility in the currency holder's hands. All the cryptocurrencies adhere to the five properties and the three functions of money. They each attempt to solve one or more real problems. That's what I was looking for, but not what I was looking for. Here we go. A cryptocurrency is an encrypted data string that denotes a unit, like a unit of currency. It's monitored and organized by a peer-to-peer network. So it goes from person to person to person to person, which is called a blockchain, which also serves as a secure ledger of transactions, i.e., buying, selling, and transferring. So it's at person one, and then it transfers to person two, and it's noted. Then it goes to three, and it's noted. And it goes to four, and it's noted. And it goes to five, and it's noted. So there's a history behind it, checks and balance. So if you're buying something or selling something, it's noted. If you're transferring from Ethereum and you're trying to get some uh, um, any cryptocurrency, Bitcoin. You're trading Ethereum for Bitcoin. It's noted. Okay, so that's how currencies are evolving now. But Big Brother doesn't like this, right? You're trying to work outside of their system, outside of their control. So what do? How do they combat that? All right, and this is from March 9th of this year. Says President Joe Biden on Wednesday signed an executive order on government oversight of cryptocurrency that urges the Federal Reserve to explore whether the central bank should jump in and create its own digital currency. So you have America and many other countries wanting to create their own digital currency so that they can get off of this dollar standard. Remember, $30 trillion in debt, and other countries around the world that are debt based, that are in this fiat debt based system, they have to have a way out. Keeping in mind everything that's going on in the world, the war, the lack of resources, okay, it's going to create a scarcity. All right, people are going to be in a need or a want, so they're going to have to have something there to not really pacify the people, but to they're going to have an answer for the people that's going to basically draw them in. And this digital currency, and then China already has it. I'll read from my notes. It says let me see, China launched its pilot digital currency. China launched its pilot digital yuan on Tuesday, January 4th of 2022. Right, the digital currency works through a mobile app, E uh, CNY, which is available on Android and Apple stores. The app is still in development phase and is restricted to select users, such as domestic banks, as China plans a nationwide rollout. So the nationwide digital currency of China is already out there, but is rolling out. They're using China for a lot of uh, test runs. The sickness, you have the social credit score, man. So you can see how all this is leading to what digital currencies, everything being ones and zeros, just numbers on a computer screen. It's all leading to this right here, the big shebang. All right, the MOTB. All right, let's get let's go over here real quick, and then we'll close it out with the scripture, because also all money is leading to this right here, this MOTB. This is from dangerousthings.com. It says NFC chip implant. All right, or you can get. You see how this guy has magnets in his freaking hand. So you know, programmable rings. They have all kinds of stuff. But it says, welcome to Dangerous Things. We've been working with human implant technology since 2005, and we're happy to help with your upgrade. Like you're a machine. We're happy to help with your upgrade. Okay, I don't need to be upgraded. The Most High gave me everything that I needed. He's going to upgrade me into an extraterrestrial body. That's another lesson. Okay, it says, new to biohacking? Not sure where to start? Click here. All right, upgrade yourself. Share data with smartphones. Unlock your home, car, or office. Computer log in with a wave. Sense magnetic fields around you and more. So it's trying to give you all the benefits, all the good things that you can do with your new upgrade. All right, you can share data with your smartphone. You can unlock your car door with a wave of the hand. But let's get this scripture. We're going to get the scripture and end it on this. Okay, this is Revelation 13 and 16. It says, and he calls of all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead. Okay, that no man might buy or sell save that he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. All right, and that mark is a cutting in the flesh. That chip, that RFID chip, all right, as you can see, is going to be cut in the flesh using that syringe into the hand, as shown in this picture. Okay, and shown in this picture. All right, you can see the size of it. So, what did it say? And that no man might buy or sell. That's the whole purpose of money. To barter, to buy and to sell, to trade. I need milk. I need water. All right, I need food. I need a house. I need a car. I need to put gas in my car. Can't do any of that. Commerce. So that he calls of all, both small and great, rich and poor, free or bond, to receive this mark in their right hand or on their forehead, that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark. So if you don't get this implant, you're not going to be able to buy or sell. Hence, they have all the control if you want to survive in their economy. Okay? So, Lord's will, we're at an hour. That's about what I thought it was going to be. Lord's will, this was an edifying video. And I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Wakar Kadash. Give honors to the apostles and elders of GMS. Salutes and honors to the elect, all the brothers across the four corners who are enduring in truth and sincerity, the women and children, and the confusion of faith who follow. Shalom.